The Roman Colosseum was a place where blood stained the sand, steel clashed against steel, and thousands of voices echoed in thunderous approval. But who were the men sent into this brutal arena? Were they celebrated athletes, slaves forced into service, or something far darker? Could their lives have been less about glory and more about survival in a world where the crowd's desire for entertainment outweighed human life itself? And what secrets do their bones, weapons, and tombs reveal about a reality hidden beneath centuries of legend? Before delving into the lives of gladiators, it is essential to understand the world that created them. The Colosseum, officially known as the Flavian Amphitheater, opened in Rome around 80 AD under Emperor Titus. It was capable of holding more than 50,000 spectators, making it the greatest stage for blood sport in the ancient world. The Roman Empire, at its height, stretched across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Public entertainment played a central role in holding this diverse empire together, reinforcing loyalty and reminding its people of Rome's unmatched power. Gladiators were not just fighters, they were symbols of Rome's control over life and death. The question of who entered the arena is not as straightforward as it may seem. Many gladiators were slaves or prisoners of war, forced into combat as punishment or exploitation. Others were criminals condemned to fight as a form of public execution. But evidence also shows that some men, even free citizens, chose to enter the profession voluntarily. Why would anyone willingly risk their life in such a savage environment? Historians believe motivations ranged from crushing poverty to the promise of fame and financial gain. Contracts were signed with gladiatorial schools, locking recruits into strict control, often for several years. What all gladiators shared was the loss of autonomy. Once within the system, their lives belonged to the lanista, the owner and trainer. Gladiators spent most of their time not in the arena, but inside gladiator schools, called ludi. These were part prison, part training camp. Archaeological evidence from Pompeii shows fortified barracks with small cells for sleeping, a central training yard, and areas for weapon practice. Life was harsh but surprisingly structured. Gladiators followed strict diets of barley, beans, and porridge, designed to bulk their bodies for endurance. They were given medical care superior to what most ordinary Romans could access, as they represented expensive investments for their lanistae. Daily routines revolved around drilling, sparring, and conditioning. While prisoners, they were also assets, and every effort was made to ensure they could fight multiple times, rather than die too soon. The arsenal of the gladiator was as symbolic as it was deadly. Gladiators were classified into types, each equipped with distinctive armor and weapons. The Murmillo wore a heavy helmet with a fish-shaped crest and carried a massive rectangular shield with a short sword. The Retiarius fought with a net and trident, lightly armored and relying on speed. The Secutor was designed as the Retiarius's counterpart, with a smooth helmet that prevented nets from catching. These pairings were deliberate, creating dramatic contrasts of tactics and style. Archaeologists studying gladiator helmets and armor have found them ornately decorated, a reminder that these combats were theatrical performances, not just military exercises. The games themselves were carefully staged productions. The day might begin with wild animal hunts, followed by executions of criminals, and end with gladiatorial matches. A referee, dressed in traditional robes, oversaw the duel, ensuring rules were followed. Contrary to common belief, not every fight ended in death. Gladiators were too costly to throw away in every match. Instead, bouts focused on skill, endurance, and entertainment value. When defeat seemed certain, a gladiator might appeal to the crowd or the presiding emperor with a raised finger. The spectators then demanded mercy or death with dramatic hand gestures or shouts. Survival often depended on how bravely a gladiator had fought and how entertained the audience had been. making each match a dangerous gamble for honor and life. Although gladiators were among the lowest ranks of Roman society, they also became unlikely celebrities. Their images were painted on walls, their names etched by fans on pottery shards, and their lives followed with intense fascination. Successful fighters could earn prizes in gold, sometimes enough to purchase freedom. Some were adored by wealthy patrons, including Roman women who romanticized their physical strength and fearless reputation. This duality, loathed for their dishonor but admired for their valor, made gladiators unique figures in Roman culture. They were both outcasts and idols, condemned men who could wield extraordinary influence. One of the lesser-known aspects of gladiatorial history is the presence of female gladiators, known as gladiatrices. Historical references and a handful of carvings suggest that women did take part in the spectacle, though in much smaller numbers. These bouts involving women appear to have been novelties, staged to shock and capture attention rather than mirror the structure of male combat. Evidence suggests that by the late 2nd century AD, female gladiators were officially banned, a reflection not only of their rarity, but also of the discomfort such spectacles caused within Roman society. While some gladiators survived multiple bouts, many perished young. Mass graves discovered in sites such as Ephesus reveal the brutal cost. Archaeologists have examined skeletons showing cut marks consistent with swords, as well as evidence of healed injuries from repeated combat. Some gladiator burial sites contained offerings and memorials commissioned by fellow fighters, indicating that bonds of brotherhood existed within this violent world. Despite their role as disposable performers, gladiators left tangible marks on history through these remains, which allow modern scientists to reconstruct their diets, medical treatments, and causes of death with striking detail. The gladiatorial system lasted for centuries but eventually faded. By the 4th and 5th centuries AD, as Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, criticism of the games grew stronger. The immense cost of maintaining amphitheaters and gladiator training schools also became a burden on the state. Although popular, the games symbolized a culture of brutality at odds with emerging values of compassion and spiritual salvation. By the early 5th century, official gladiatorial combat was outlawed, closing a chapter on one of Rome's most chilling institutions. The gladiators of Rome lived lives defined by paradox. They were enslaved and controlled, yet, in rare instances, they became free and celebrated. They embodied both shame and fame, brutality and artistry. The Colosseum stands today as a ruined monument, stripped of its clamor. But the memory of those who fought and died persists in popular imagination. What remains most striking is not only the violence they endured, but the way their existence reflected the values and contradictions of Rome itself. The savage lives of gladiators reveal less about individual combatants and more about a society willing to turn suffering into spectacle, a reminder of the lengths to which civilization can go when entertainment and power demand blood.